Good morning. Here's what's coming up on the headlines this hour. Once again, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky rejects Russia's evacuation proposals. The UN calls for safe passage of civilians fleeing fighting in Ukraine. And Russia threatens to cut off gas supply to Europe. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our full-hour coverage of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I'm Amarachi Ubani in Lagos. Just to bring you up to speed with what's happened in the last half hour at least, civilian casualties are on the rise in Ukraine as Russian military forces shelled various cities overnight and into the early hours of this morning. In Zhytomyr, west of Kyiv, a fire at the oil depot in Chernihiv was extinguished in the early hours of the morning. In the eastern city of Sumy, aerial bombardment destroyed residential houses and set an apartment building ablaze. One woman was reportedly injured and 9 people were killed, including 2 children. In Mykolaiv, in the south of Ukraine, several fires in residential areas broke out. 4 civilians were killed in the assault, and 5 others were rescued from the rubble before being rushed to hospital. In Kharkiv, in eastern Ukraine, Russian shelling set 9 floors and 27 apartment units of a residential building on fire. A blaze that took rescuers more than 4 hours to extinguish. At least 4 people were killed. We've been keeping tabs on Linus Baka, the Nigerian PhD student who's studying at the Agrarian University in Sumy. He was supposed to leave yesterday alongside other Nigerian students. That didn't happen. Today we have good news. Linus joins us from Sumy just before his departure. Linus, great to see you, and I know that you have good news for us, so tell us all about it.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, Linus. And
yeah, good morning.
Great. I know there's a lot of movement where you are.
Yeah, I'm back.
Yeah, so tell us the good news this morning.
The good news is we've been told that buses would be here. This is 10:04. Buses would be here soon to take us out. And the Indian students just left about an hour ago. So we are all waiting. Maybe I can show you the Nigerian students that are here, and we are all waiting.
And your camera keeps going off, Linus. Okay,
yeah,
you're still
here
with us.
Yes.
Okay, I know.
So,
go on.
Okay, yeah. So this are the Nigerian students. We're all out. We're all waiting for the buses to arrive.
I know when we spoke to you yesterday, Linus, you said a lot of people were frustrated. People even broke down in tears. Hope was fading regarding, your evacuation. But today, is everyone in high spirits? I'm sure that has been restored.
Everybody is in high spirits. Everybody is excited. And we're just hoping and we are waiting that everything materializes. I mean, everybody is really, really excited to leave. Yesterday was really, really tense, but this morning, I think everybody is happy. Finally, when the buses come, we'll all be leaving.
That's such good news, And Linus, let's just understand, you're packing only the essentials, right? Are you all hoping to come back to Ukraine?
Well, most people are hoping to come back. Myself, I'm really hoping to come back because I've been here for a very long time, and it's quite just living like that. But we're hoping everything goes well and we'll all come back and finish our studies.
We also understand that some Nigerians are making plans to continue their education in other schools within the region, in other parts of Eastern Europe. Are you aware of those students, and have they solidified their plans already, or will they be coming home with you?
Well, yes, people make plans. Probably if this doesn't work, so people have already started making those plans. But I think most people would really want to return, but considering what has happened, I don't think anybody would want to come, but I think most people would want to come back.
And for those who are planning to come back, how exactly they, you know, are they thinking through, how they will continue their education? What kinds of conversations are they having amongst themselves?
Well, I mean, the truth is education here is really, really nice compared to other European countries and cheap too. So I want to believe those factors people will really consider them before making a choice, whether leaving this place or staying or coming back. Sorry.
Yeah, and speaking of leaving, Linus, where you're headed right now when the buses come?
Um, we're being told that we're headed for Poltava, but we don't know. Some are saying maybe to straight to the borders. So we're not sure yet, but obviously we are leaving Sumi, and leaving Sumi is really uh, a priority right now.
Yeah, I understand. And we're rolling a video just beside you. This was one of the videos was sent to us, I think, a few days ago. Some of the
Yeah.
students in Sumy who were complaining about, some said they were shot at by Russian forces and all of that. So between last night and this morning, because we're reporting as well that there was shelling overnight. Did you hear anything? What was the experience overnight until this morning?
Yes, there was an incident at about 10 p.m. Yesterday. Uh, but it's one of those things we've been hearing them. Maybe we're getting used to them, but I don't think anyone is getting used to them right now. But yeah, there was. But this morning I went out to the city center to pick one or two things, but the place is really calm.
Oh, that's pretty good news, and we hope it stays calm enough for you all to leave. And
Yeah.
Linus, yesterday we're talking about the impact of this on your mental health, and I know that for many of the Nigerian students who are there as well, this may have impacted heavily on them. What sort of help are you looking forward to receiving? Is it just getting back home, being with your family? Would that be the solution for you, or do you think you might be needing some extra help with processing what has happened in Ukraine?
Well, I really think there would be some sort of help, but there is no help being around family, people that care, people that have been praying sleepless night and trusting God that everybody's. But I think being with our families would be very, very important and key at this moment because I mean nothing like home. Just to see our parents, our siblings, our relative, loved ones once again. I think it will really, really help. But I think largely we are really expecting that, and it will really raise the mood of everybody.
Do you think you'll ever remain the same again? I mean, having gone through this experience, Linus.
Yes. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Do you think you'll ever remain the same again?
Personally, yes, I really think so. But I don't know for, I really don't know for most people. But for myself, yes.
Well, Linus, we're happy. The evacuation is finally happening. We're glad that the federal
Yeah.
government has worked so hard to get to this point, getting you
Mm-hmm.
guys out. We look forward to receiving you in Lagos or in Abuja. A safe trip, safe skies as well. And say hello to all the Nigerian students there as well for us. You all have been very brave through this. Thank you again,
Yeah.
Linus.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Linus Bakar in Sumy, where there has been fighting reported as well as shelling overnight, as well as in some other cities, Mykolaiv, Kharkiv. Sumy, there were reports of aerial bombardments destroying residential houses and setting an apartment building ablaze. A woman was reportedly injured and 9 people were killed, including 2 children. We're grateful Linus and his other colleagues are leaving Sumy to safety. Ukraine's government yesterday rejected a ceasefire from the Russian government because it rerouted trips through Belarus to Russia. And later Monday, President Volodymyr Zelensky described the deal as movement into occupied territory. In a video posted online, the president said they open a tiny corridor into the occupied territory for a couple of dozen people, not so much to Russia as to their propaganda, their TV cameras saying, "Look who is saving people." Plain cynicism, plain propaganda. Russia has proposed the establishment of humanitarian corridors to allow civilians to leave 5 Ukrainian cities, including the capital, Kyiv, from 9 in the morning local time on today. Pending Ukrainian government, Russian news agencies are reporting that but most of the corridors would travel through Russia or Belarus, is something the Ukrainian authorities have rejected in the past. Ukraine has been given until 3 in the morning Moscow time to agree to the terms. Also on Monday, President Zelensky said U.S. President Joe Biden could do more to help Ukraine and urged Americans to reflect on what freedom means.
President can do more. I'm sure he can, and I would like to believe that he's capable of doing that. Today, war is here. Tomorrow, it will be in Lithuania, then in Poland, then in Germany. This is serious. United States is far away, but in recent days, I do feel that United States are closer to us.
I know you spoke with President Biden again. I'm curious, what's the most important thing you're asking the president for, asking the U.S. for right now?
I told him that for us, the most important today is the security in the sky. Well, I would like the end to be like in the Hollywood movies, the happy end for our country. I think he is capable of stopping the war that he started.
I don't know what to say. Thank you very much. What to say to Americans. I just want you to feel and to understand what does it mean for us freedom? Because always American people they speak about freedom and they know what is it. And now when you're looking at Ukrainians, I think you feel what does it mean for us. If you see and if you understand how we feel life, how we fight against all the enemies for our freedom, support us. Support us, and not only with words, with concrete, direct steps. Do it, and I think we'll win. Of course, together with all the world.
Brave President Zelensky pleaded with President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, to end hostilities and appealed again for the setup of a no-fly zone over Ukraine, which Russia invaded by land, sea and air on February 24th. And NATO has so far rejected Ukrainian calls to help it protect its skies from Russian missiles and warplanes, where they are being dragged into Moscow's war on its neighbors. But the U.S. Pentagon says Russia's growing reliance on longer-range strikes on Ukrainian targets is increasing the number of civilian casualties and damage to civilian infrastructure, stopping short of saying the casualties are intentional. The United States and its allies on Monday urged Russia at the United Nations to allow safe passage to civilians in besieged Ukrainian cities and aid to areas of fighting, saying the humanitarian crisis in Ukraine is rapidly deteriorating. Envoys from many countries, including the US, Ireland and France, as well as UN and Chief Martin Griffiths, have sounded the alarm over the rapidly rising number of civilian casualties, including women and children and displaced people. Russia had offered Ukrainians escape routes to Russia and to Belarus, its close ally, earlier Monday after a weekend evacuation ceasefire attempts failed.
As the Russians continue to get frustrated and slowed down, and they really haven't made any noteworthy progress in the last few days, with the exception of down south. In the south, they continue to have some progress, but up in the north and northeast. What we assess is as they continue to get frustrated, they continue to rely now more on what we would call long-range fires. So this is bombardment, missile strikes, long-range artillery into city centers that they aren't in yet, at least not on the ground in any significant number. So we're seeing that. And, of course, that has been leading to, and as you would expect it would, when you're relying more on long-range fires, you're gonna cause more damage, and you're going to kill more people and injure more people. And so that's what we think is happening. That's what we're seeing them do, and we think it's because, again, they have not been able to make up for the lost time that they continue to suffer from on the ground in terms of the advancement of ground forces. The degree to which we can prove that these are incidental versus intentional, I don't think we've got that sense with any great fidelity, Tom. So it would be imprudent for me to speculate that we know for sure that a given target was intentional or not. And I understand the context of the question. The bottom line is more civilians are being killed and wounded. More civilian infrastructure is being damaged or destroyed, and Mr. Putin still has a choice here: not to escalate, not to be more aggressive in the use of these long-range fires and in his capabilities, but to find a diplomatic path forward and to end the invasion.
When we come back after the break on the program, it is International Women's Day. A look at the women in Ukraine and those fleeing the fighting. We're speaking to Mila, who's also fleeing the fighting in Ukraine. She's in a safe place. That coming up next. Stay with us. Welcome back to the program. With war raging in Europe after 70+ years of peace, this International Women's Day is a time to acknowledge the courage the women in key roles in every aspect of this conflict. And from the women fleeing the violence in Ukraine with their children and families to those at the front lines or bringing us their stories on the ground as journalists, to the geopolitical leaders managing the crisis. There are many women playing pivotal roles in this crisis. This year's International Women's Day 2022 is definitely in commemoration of these extraordinary women making history today, who perhaps will help determine what tomorrow looks like, both in Ukraine and around the world. Well, Ukrainian women and the country will emerge victorious in this war with Russia, hopefully. One of those is Katrina Laskari, who left her hometown of Kyiv 2 days after Russian forces attacked Ukraine and started bombing its capital city. She found refuge in a small village 50 kilometers away where her family has a house. She stayed there with a 3-year-old son, Simon, her pregnant sister, who's due to give birth in 2 weeks, a small child, and their parents. She says she now feels like a soldier. She feels she has a lot of energy to fight because she knows she will win. She knows the war against Putin is a war he cannot win.
Okay, so now we are in this awful war. We are already for 10 days. It is a really very long term, to tell the truth, and it feels like 10 years. And we couldn't even imagine 2 weeks ago that it will happen with our country and with our nation. Nobody could imagine. People just live their own beautiful, perfect lives. They were building houses, they gave birth to kids, and everything was fine. Yes, we were waiting for spring, but unfortunately, on 24th of February, Putin and his army came to Ukraine, and they decided to announce the biggest and the most awful and the most stupid war in 21st century. During the first 2 days, we stayed in Kyiv, but we felt so unsafe. We heard all these bombs and all these awful sounds, so we didn't know what to do. And we have 2 kids, we have 2 small babies with us, and we have 1 pregnant woman. She's my sister, and my parents, of course. So we didn't know what to do, to move or to stay. And on the second day, my mother had a really big panic attack, and so she called me and asked me to leave the city and to leave it in any direction. That is why we decided to leave the capital and went to a calm village, which is our root house place, I would say. Now it feels safer than in Kyiv, but anyway, we can hear bombs every day, and we can hear our guys exploding the bridges. So the war is anyway too close to our family. Oh, to tell the truth, I wouldn't say I'm not frightened. Of course, I'm frightened as everybody, but I have so many people I'm responsible for. I'm responsible for my family. I'm responsible for my business. So I contact my colleagues every single day. We have many chats to talk and to support each other. And all these people need psychological help. All these people need some salaries, to buy food. So I'm a little bit frustrated, but to tell the truth, I thought I would be even more frightened. But now I feel like a soldier. I feel that I have a lot of energy to fight, because I know that we will win. I know that this war against Putin is war he couldn't win.
We have another woman joining us now. Mila is in the city of Vinnytsia. She has been going through and experiencing this war in Ukraine, fleeing Kyiv, I believe, and is now in somewhere pretty safe. Mila, thank you for joining us on the program this morning. We know that there was a lot of shelling all through the night. Did you experience that as well?
Good morning. Yes, we had attacks over the night and a lot of alarm signals during the night, but right now it's calm. And I'm contacting all my colleagues. I'm checking if everyone is fine and trying to help, because some of people are still in Kyiv and around of Kyiv, and they have no chance to escape. So we are contacting all volunteers as possible to bring them to the safe place. And what I know right now, it's also calm in Kyiv, but during the night was a few attacks, and also after negotiation, our government with Russian government, we also had few attacks straight after they finished it. So we are all praying for the better future, for that that everything will be finished very soon. But it seems there is no progress, and it's a bit disappointed.
Your government has rejected the proposed ceasefire from Russia, and that's because the routes would lead to Belarus and would also lead to Russia. President Zelensky says this is going into occupied territory. Ukraine had also proposed a ceasefire, which was violated by the Russian forces. What do you make of Russia making this proposal now, and do you support your government rejecting it?
Currently, it's not the question which I can answer right now, but I'm fully trust my government and trust people who are fighting against the Putin and Russia. So there is no step back. It's our freedom, and we need to fight until the last moment. We can't just give all our territory, give all deaths of our people, and to get instead not freedom but something what we have in Russia. I don't want this. We are Ukraine, we independent country. We have our way of living. We have our way of development, and this is all we are. We are one nation, which we don't want to be mixed with other, with Russia, with Belarus.
Pretty strong words from you, Miller. But you have seen this war from the time it started. And today is International Women's Day. Do you feel any form of celebration? I'm sure that's far from you. What do you think the rest of the world could do to help make your situation better?
Putin, please stop this war and take hands from Ukraine.
That's it. Just a real simple message. You also spoke about your parents who had been in one of those areas where there had been a lot of shelling and explosions. They're safe now?
Yes, my parents moved from another region where we also had a lot of attacks like 2 days before. They are moved a bit west and they are right now safe in a small village. So yeah, and I also had contact with my mom just like few hours before we started the interview. So it's okay now, but of course, like my parents are very stressful, and this is a bit disappointed because I prefer that parents will be calm and don't think about such things on their age.
More women and children are making that trip across the border to neighboring countries. A lot of them are crossing over to Romania, are going to Moldova, Poland, and the rest of them are women and children. What sort of future and what sort of history do you think children will remember from this incident? And what sort of future do you think lies ahead of them as they escape the war in Ukraine?
Well, this is like, the most scary situation which could happen in the childhood. And they are like currently apart from their fathers, from grandparents, because the man is not allowed to cross the border, and they're frightened, and probably they not probably, but definitely they will need psychological support to to get rid from all of these memories, because it's very scary. It's just unbelievable.
And I can see, Miller, even though you say things are calm now, you're still a bit shaken up from all of this. How are you doing mentally through this whole conflict?
Well, like the feelings a bit different time to time, because sometimes you have a lot of energy and you want to fight, you are like volunteering, and once you heard that someone like was hurt from your friends, or about some attack where people were died, of course you just like started to be stuck and don't know what to do or how to live. And this is like something which you can't predict. For example, before the war, every day I wake up and I know what I need to do about like my future. But for now, I'm just like praying that tomorrow I still will have like shelter. I still like my parents and my and all people in Ukraine are safe and they are not hurted, wounded. And these mixed feelings, I didn't feel it before at all. It's very difficult to explain because it's something I even have no words how to like explain it. I try to switch my contact. I try like to work or do something, but at some point you just stuck and can't do anything.
And what are you doing to stay sane, Miller? May seem to have lost signal with Miller is back, thankfully. Miller, I was asking what you're doing to stay sane. I know you're experiencing a lot of emotions at this time, and just as many other Ukrainians are as well, especially women and children concerned about the future, concerned about the well-being of their loved ones. What are you doing to stay sane? We do seem to have lost a signal with Miller. She is in a shelter. We're trying not to disclose her location for her own safety. But Miller, if you can hear us, we do wish you all the best and hope that you get to safety. We're grateful your parents are in a safe place as well, and also praying for other Ukrainians as well to also be safe. Thank you for joining us on the program. Now, as the Russian invasion of Ukraine continues, aid supplies have arrived for onward distribution, and an emergency medical team set up a field hospital in the western city of Lviv. The World Health Organization received 2 generators to help health facilities in areas with electricity issues and prepare other supplies at a warehouse on the outskirts of Lviv. Meanwhile, an emergency medical team from the charity Samaritan's Purse, also a WHO partner, set up a field hospital in a parking lot to take pressure off the city's health services.
Already in first few days, we brought 36 metric tons of medical material mainly needed to treat wounded people and perform surgeries. As well, there were some essential medicines for other sort of diseases. Right now, we are talking with the Ministry of Health to define exact needs, because in the first place we try to bring as much supplies as possible, but then we need to get exact list of medicines that are needed from health authorities, so we have more targeted deliveries in coming days and weeks. And just today we have received, for example, 2 generators that will help health facilities in those areas where electricity may be an issue.
We're setting up a hospital that will treat over 100 to 200 patients per day. It's got 50 to 70 bed capacity, an inpatient capacity, a trauma room, a triage, 4 wards, 2 male, 2 female wards, and then we have 4 ICU beds, as well as 2 operating room theaters. One of the biggest needs is medical supplies, as well as staffing, and as patient loads pick up and more patients come, they're really going to need facilities. So our goal here is to take really the pressure off of the facilities that are there right now, and really be able to unburden them of the patients that they're having.
We have public health expert Akila Ishaku joining us now to discuss the health and medical challenges that are going on in Ukraine as we speak. Dr. Ishaku, thank you for joining us on the program this morning.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm sure that you have been monitoring and just watching the situation in Ukraine. You've seen people hurt, you've seen people die. And I'm sure that as a medical expert, you're wondering, how these people are getting the necessary help, how they're treating their wounds in this wartime situation. Just tell us what's going through your mind as you're watching those videos and processing what's going on in Ukraine.
Yeah, I'm quite glad that this morning you are able to actually have an interface with one of my cousins. Linus is a cousin to me, and I'm quite happy that seeing him doing well and hearty, and we'll be glad to also receive him back home and also provide the necessary psychological support. But you know that globally the world has been devastated by COVID in the last 2 years. A kind of disruption in the healthcare system globally. Ukraine is not an exception. And then going out of the 2 years of healthcare system disruption by COVID, and then we have been defaced by another war again in Ukraine, you will discover that this will cause a serious humanitarian crisis. There will also be medical need crisis that we should be expected in Ukraine. I quickly have to have a review in the last 1 week, and I discovered that over 1,000 babies were given birth under the basement train station maternity home. Not also withstanding, you will also discover that the population of Ukraine just barely 25% of them were vaccinated for COVID. And then you discover that the war has also caused people not to also obey the non-pharmaceutical essential measures. So people will be, overcrowded areas, and the chances of transmission of COVID will be very high. I also know that Ukraine has one of the highest rate of tuberculosis in Europe. And you know that tuberculosis also has a transmission predictor monitor in places that are overcrowded. And so we should be expecting more cases of transmission of tuberculosis among people that are running because of the war. But by and large, you also discover that it also has the second highest number of cancer patients in Eastern Europe. So we have a lot of cancer patients that are in dire need of medical attention, which will not have because of the invasion. So a whole lot of disruption in the healthcare system, a whole lot of disruption in terms of medical need and assessment to basic needs. These alone are going to be drivers for a lot of infectious diseases and also non-communicable diseases. I hope you are also aware that over 1.5 to 2 million refugees have fled and to the nearby countries of Poland. So there will be a lot of health emergencies. There will be a lot of crises when it comes to health care services delivery.
Yeah, and the war still continues, right? So, eventually when we have to, take stock of, what has happened so far, and we have to take stock of, what has been lost and what may be lost, the results might be grave at the end of the day. So you feel that tuberculosis and all these other diseases that you have mentioned, of course, COVID as well, there could be rising cases. Would that be enough for a resurgence of the pandemic or a different sort of pandemic? Just before COVID, Omicron and the other variants were prevalent in most countries. Could this also give a rise to a new variant of COVID, perhaps?
Absolutely. Not only a new variant of COVID, but also a variant of other hemorrhagic viral infection. You will also be aware that most likely there are pockets of, we might have pockets of measles, outbreaks around because of the invasion. Where if we need to also put a great searchlight on even the issues of polio. But what is quite key is what you have established. You find out that there are also transborder movement, and then there is also an interface. Even in terms of IDP camps, there will be a lot of not obeying the non-pharmaceutical measures, and also in terms of transborder movement that has to do with a change in climatic weather and all what have you. It is the human beings that move the viruses, not that the viruses move themselves. So I agree with you that the WHO has to put a more searchlight on doing a lot of genomic sequencing in the COVID viruses, most especially in endemic areas where there are wars like Ukraine, because we might have an emergence of a new variant, just like the way you postulated. I also read this morning on some publications on public health modeling that they also envisage what you are envisaging, that the likelihood of having a new variant as a result of invasion of Russia in Ukraine is there. In fact, the probability index is about 90%. This is because there has been a lot of international travels. As a country, we also need to have a way of providing psychological therapy to Ukrainians, Nigerians that are staying in Ukraine back home. We also need to put a lot of searchlight on doing a lot of genomic sequencing, because, yeah, these guys are coming from a world endemic zone. The likelihood of also transporting most of these viruses down to Nigeria is there. So we need to do a lot of active surveillance search and also keep track of them as they come back home. Not as a way of discrimination, but as a way of protecting the well-being of Nigerians as a whole.
I'm just wondering, Doctor, the impact, that the bombings and shellings may also have on people, apart from, direct injuries on individuals. What about the inhalation, in the atmosphere? Some of these things release particles into the atmosphere that, effects of which might be only noticed years from now. Are you also concerned about that?
Absolutely. You find out that wars like this actually change the dynamics of the ecosystem. They change the dynamics of the biodiversity of also the faunas and the floras that are in the environment. So in the coming days to come, we should be experiencing a lot of emergence and re-emergence of infectious diseases from the environment. I hope you are also aware that there is a dynamics change now in terms of considering the health indices and dynamics of disease transmission that has to do with the One Health component, which has to do with looking at the environment, looking at the human population and also the animal population. It's a tripartite kind of a linkage that if you disrupt one of these focal point, it has a ripple effect on the other. So if you disrupt the environment, it has a wailing effect both on human population and on the animal population. So in fact, as a result of this war, we should be having some genetic defects in terms of there should be genetic disorder in human population, also genetic disorder in animal population, because once you have an effect on the environment, it has a replicating effect on human population and the animal population.
So eventually, what sorts of diseases could emerge from this? Because I know that, with the when Chernobyl happened, many people are still experiencing certain types of cancers from that, and as well the bombs that went off, the atomic bombs that went off during the World War. In World War II, there were also different types of cancers emerging from that. What sort of diseases could we be looking at in the future?
Yeah, because we are not sure of the kind of weapons that are being used in Russia invasion. We don't know whether they are atomic weapons or whether they are weapons of mass destruction, as it may be. But be that as it may be, once a weapon is used during war, there are also kind of interference with the genetic makeup. In the coming days to come, in the non-communicable component of the diseases that we should be experiencing is that we should be experiencing some genetic disorder. Children will be given birth with certain defects, genetic defects. But when it comes to issues of cancer generally, because most of these weapons are from atomic origins, they are not biodegradable, and so they remain recalcitrant even in the environment. Water sources will be contaminated, food sources will be contaminated as a result of bioaccumulation of this weapon down into the environment. And so we should be experiencing emergence and re-emergence of cancers of gastrointestinal origin and also of colon origin. We should also be expecting cancers, what is referred to as melanoma, cancer of the skin, because a lot of effect of these bombs will be on the skin, and also which has a lot of interference with the genetic makeup that does with a kind of a skin formation. So we're running through, and also that a lot of waters will be polluted, and so there will be a lot of a holistic crisis. So ranging from a pollution of the environment and genetic disorder from a human population and animal population that might lead to birth defects, that may lead to genetic effects or defects in terms of children that will be given birth to. It also has to move to the issues of cancer and all what have you. But what is quite key that we have not yet discussed here is the issue of the mental status of the Ukrainians. A lot of them will go through a lot of, that a lot of them have sustained trauma as a result of this war. A lot of them will have a lot of mental disorders. So there is it's a kind of a broad spectrum effect on the health indices of Ukrainians. So they need a lot of mental rehabilitation, psychosocial support, and all what have you. So it's a broad impact, in all honesty, that this crisis and invasion has actually exerted on Ukrainians.
Dr. Akela, can't thank you enough for exposing these issues to us on the program. Thank you again for speaking with us.
Thank you for having me.
When we come back after the break, the White House says President Joe Biden has not made a decision on banning Russian oil just yet. We'll have more in our business segment. Stay with us. Welcome back. And in our business segment, Russia has said it may close its main gas pipeline to Germany if the West goes ahead with a ban on Russian oil. Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak said a rejection of Russian oil would lead to catastrophic consequences for the global market, causing prices to more than double to $300 a barrel. The U.S. has been exploring a potential ban with allies as a way of punishing Russia for its invasion of Ukraine. Germany and the Netherlands, however, have rejected the plan. The EU gets about 40% of its gas and 30% of its oil from Russia and has no easy substitutes if supplies are disrupted. Well, the White House says President Joe Biden has not made a decision on banning Russian oil imports. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki told reporters discussions are ongoing internally about Russian oil as officials consider options to punish Russia for its invasion of Ukraine. Psaki said that Biden had taken steps to reduce the impact of rising oil prices on American consumers, such as including energy discussions in talks with Venezuela and with Iran.
Russia. No decision has been made at this point by the president about a ban on importing oil from Russia, and those discussions are ongoing internally and also with our counterparts and partners in Europe and around the world. I would note that what the president is most focused on is ensuring we are continuing to take steps to deliver punishing economic consequences on Putin, while taking all action necessary to limit the impact to prices at the gas pump. Well, the president's message is that he is going to do everything he can to reduce the impact on the American people, including the price of gas at the tank. What is also true is that because of the actions of President Putin, because he invaded a sovereign country, that created instability in the markets. That is something the president talked about even before Russia and President Putin moved forward with their actions. But we have already taken steps. The president has already taken steps. Historic release from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, one that's done in a coordinated fashion. And clearly we will continue to have conversations with large oil producers and suppliers around the world about how to mitigate the impact and consider domestic options as well.
Correspondent Ladi Williams joins me now. Ladi, your thoughts on a possible, well, most analysts have wondered why the U.S. is not banning Russian oil, and even with all of the sanctions that Western countries have imposed, oil has not been touched.
Right, exactly, because, at the end of the day, you see Russia, produces much of the oil, that the world uses right now. They're the third largest producers, and also gas. And, it's easy for the U.S. to, say, okay, fine, we want to cut, imports from Russia. But for Europe, it's a different story. Yeah. Europeans rely heavily on Russian gas, at this point for
So it is interesting that Russia says it's already looking to alternatives, to other markets, but there's no word from the West about alternative markets for getting oil, right?
Yeah. There's no word, from all these other markets. But at this point, it's this should be an opportunity, for other, countries that have, deposits of. Take, for instance, gas now. Like Nigeria has, deposits of gas, but we're not,
major exporters
at this point, because we have deposits, but output, is an issue. But, at this point, countries that have these deposits should actually be looking for ways to actually ramp up production to take advantage of this market, as we've seen, gas futures actually surge at this point.
Yeah, we talked about this yesterday, and I know you had a lot more discussion on it on Business Morning. But talking about Business Morning, which comes up in just a few minutes,
yes,
you're discussing the markets and the impact of this war on global markets, right?
Exactly, yeah, because looking at the FTSE 100 yesterday closed at record low. You know, markets from Asia, Europe, the US, all were battered yesterday, including, you know, the cryptocurrency markets. They're seeing their worst performances since October, you know, 2020. And all of this because investors are worried right now, weighing the issues going on with Ukraine and Russia at this point. So, and also commodity prices are hitting record highs. You know, at this point, wheat, that's one, Russia being a heavy, one of the biggest exporters of wheat at this point. Obviously, markets are going to be rattled at this point. North Africa depends heavily on Russian wheat, you know, for bread and all of that. So right now, there's also this fear of hunger. You know, at this point, with all of this tension escalating at this point. So on Business Incorporated, we're going to be talking, you know, about wheat and how it's going to impact, you know, food security in the world.
Oh, but Business Incorporated is quite a while from now.
Oh, yes. Yeah, but Business Money, we're also talking commodities, too.
Yeah, so I heard
today.
You mentioned, you know, the impact on cryptocurrency, and I'm wondering, you know, for those who are still, for investors, you know, are they seeing the numbers going up or going down? Are they regretting?
Well, at this point,
the
crypto market obviously is the most risky market at this point, and traders, it's actually extreme fear right now. We see Bitcoin trading below the 39,000 range, so it's quite bearish at this point. Traders are looking for that safe haven asset. But interestingly, some other traders believe Bitcoin is not doing as badly, you know, as other markets because it's still trading at about 38,000 this morning. With all of this tension, you would expect Bitcoin will be about maybe 20,000 by now. But who knows? Still to be seen how it all plays out.
Well, Laddie, the man with the numbers and the man with the analysis, I am sure you'll tell us more about this on Business Incorporated and Business Morning, also with some more enlightenment, you know, the impact of all of the sanctions on Russia. Thank you again for joining me. We'll see you in a bit.
All right.
And that's it on the program this hour. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani.